right, this is a little note at the start of this Teaching the Name series, which is about the name of God. Just to let you know that, as some of you have been able to tell, my views have changed recently, as I no longer can accept that God gave the Torah, even if you were to get rid of all the errors that people say have happened to the Torah, like transcribing and maybe lost original scrolls and so on. I no longer think of God the same way as I do because of what I've now studied and searched out in the Torah. And so I now think that God has to be verified not by the oldest manuscript or scrolls, not even by the original scrolls of Moses or of Enoch or anybody that you can find in ancient Israel. God cannot be verified by a very, very old scroll. God must be verified, meaning the God of the Torah must be verified by action, by response. But at the time when I recorded this first lesson, which is the introduction to the Teaching of Names series, which is about the name of God, and I was showing what I think the name of God really is. That was about a year ago, October 29, 2017, and now we're in September of 2018. So by the time I upload this, it'll probably be a year, slightly over, but I still wanted to throw the lessons out there in this new Name of God series, which I've titled Teaching the Name, to let anyone searching on the name have at least my views on the matter. My views on the scriptures have changed, but I still wanted to just throw it out there to let people hear what I was thinking at the time before I went into this, might I say, biblical change or views changed on biblical things. Also, I didn't want to have to re-edit the video to take out the things that I no longer would teach people because of the time it would take to edit the video and redo the video. So I just thought I'll just add this little note at the start. The first two lessons were already recorded for Teaching the Name. So those will have some of my older views on the scriptures. But lesson 3 and on, if I even bother to do other lessons on this topic as I'm focusing on other lessons, would reflect more of my current views. But anyway, thanks for deciding to listen to my lessons on the name of God in this series, Teaching the Name.
Today's date is October 29, 2017. With this recording, I begin my look at the name of the Creator. Consider this like an introduction, just to let you know how the series will go, how I will approach the name. Based on the teachings that I've heard of the name of God since I was a child up until now, I've noted that people usually say this or that is the name of God, and they give a lot of scriptures to show why it is. In later years, now that I'm out of the Christian church, that also includes a lot of focusing on the Hebrew words for God. And then they go on to mentioning more scriptures and tell why these different names is for the God of Israel. And each person, group, or church will have their different names. Some people say his name is Jesus because some believe Jesus is God. Some people will say his name is Jehovah. Some will say it's actually Yahweh. And some will just simply say YHWH or YHVH. Some will not say the name at all, whatever they think it is. Usually it's like Yahweh or the YHWH, sometimes referred to as a tetragrammaton, those 4 letters. that represent the name of God. Some just won't even say the name at all. And so, based on the different teachings that one can easily find, if you just run some search online, what is the name of God, or go to a bookstore and buy a book on the name of God, you'll find all kinds of different names mentioned. Now, in this introductory lesson, I'm trying to show you how I am approaching the whole name of the Creator different. What I'm trying to do, as I've mentioned in some of my other lessons on the Garden of Eden and Adam and so on, I'm trying to take a look at the name here as well, because really the name should have come up in the first chapter as far as I understand it. But if you, on the first page, if you read the Bible or the Torah, you'll find that the name seems to come up a little bit too late, according to what I think. I personally think that the name of the Creator should have shown up very fast within the first couple verses. Lucy, let me just say, within the first 5 or 6 verses, I would have liked to see the actual name of God. So if he comes to Abraham later, or to Moses at Sinai, and say, tell them this is my name, and then he has to somehow add later on, which I'm going to read that in later videos, and say, he says I am, and then he says furthermore or something like that, and he says, say to them I'm Yahweh, which you might see it printed as Jehovah. That seems to me to be a little bit late, because after all the deception that I've had, having been reading the Bible for so long as a child, I just want to read it for myself to see what's there the way I am looking at it. And so I'm explaining in this introductory video why I'm approaching it like this. It just comes from a desire to just find the Most High for myself. Look, if you are going to give an answer to the Creator one day, or if you're going to be responsible for your life, and you have never seen God, because I don't know any one of us who has seen him, who I can go to across town and say, hey, when you met him last week, what did he say and what does he look like? You haven't seen him. Hard pressed to find anyone, as far as I've seen, who can say, I know somebody who said their father and their grandfather and their grandfather and so on, and it goes way back to the great grandfather, who was of this particular tribe, of the seed of Jacob, who was actually the son of this or that prophet or so, or of Moses and so on, when you go way back, who can say that their father Moses or so, in their actual physical or literal family within the tribes of Israel, told them that they met with the Most High themselves, and we got it written out right here in our own special piece of carving or paper and whatever. So since we don't have anyone like that we can connect with directly, we're really approaching the Bible, but doing the same thing in a sense, but doing it in a way where people of any religion on the earth do it, where they just believe something that is being taught to them about what God says in their religion and what their holy book says. So having said that, I'm trying to say that whenever I learn about God's name, it's by someone who is teaching it the way I'm teaching you something here, or by watching some video on it, or buying a book and you're reading the book and it's telling you about the name. But all that information is coming to you in a way where it's somebody else telling you about the name. But few of us have taken the time, few compared to the amount of people on the earth, have taken the time to search out the name for themselves. I mean, let me say that in some other words. To sit in a class and have your pastor or teacher or your more teach you about the name and what the name is not what I mean. I mean, few of us come away from all those strong teachings from people we love to learn from, right? I'm not putting them down. The few of us come away and do our own research independent of, but certainly making use of what our teachers taught us. So when I'm rereading the Bible, as I've said on a number of videos from last year, is that I'm going through the Bible for myself because I want to see what it says for me. If somebody wrote a book or did a lesson or taught a class and they can tell me what the Creator's name is, whatever steps they took to find it and come to those conclusions, I want to take some steps like that for myself. And not just come back and tell you this is the name because I listened to this 2-hour video from this brother that I like, or I bought 2 books on the subject and these authors said this and that and they proved it by this and that, whatever. I want to look into it for myself, and I hope after you listen to my videos you will do the same. So usually when and by the way, and I approach it that way because I want to find the Creator for myself as much as it is possible for me to do so. Many of us, as I learned about my own self, looking back from childhood till now, learned about the Creator because someone who was, for example, your pastor, told you about God because they said God called them to the ministry or something like that. And so whatever their convictions were and their understanding was about this or that particular topic, they taught it or they preached it. And you came away with some kind of conviction and you lived by it and taught other people. So a lot of that became regurgitation. So a lot of what we called in the Christian church from we were children, conviction, was not necessarily conviction based on study and trying for yourself to prove or verify things, but that conviction should have more been called regurgitation. You learned well what your pastor said, and so you did it. But I wanted to find out some of these things for myself, and the name issue attracted me because I thought if I'm going to be rereading the Bible, I want to find out what the Bible is all about. Who wrote this? And who really is God? And should we be calling him God? And lately I've been practicing to use the 3-letter word God less. And I'll talk some more about that in other videos. But for habit, out of habit, I still end up using it. It seems easier whenever I think of this being that's the Creator God just comes to mind quickly, even though I'm trying to kick it through the door with my heel. It just is like it's just there in your mind. And also because it's just an easier way to let people know what you're saying, who you're talking about, what you're what you're dealing with in the conversation. But I want to find out who he or it is. Did he speak? Which would then put some more fuller meaning to the pages of what we call the Torah. And if he spoke, how am I able to tell that these are the things that he spoke, which I see written in the Torah? How am I able to tell that? How can I verify that? Not just because I read your book and you're a good teacher and you taught those things to me. That is valuable, and I will never dismiss those teachings from you or you or you. But I'm just saying that somehow people, with this, might I say, onslaught against religious thought in general, the world over, it seems. People have to get to the place who say they believe in the Creator. They have to get to the place where they make it a priority and the business of their life, the main business in their life, to find out who this Creator is, what does he want from me, did he speak, and how can I tell what he said? Are these his words in this book they gave me that says it is the Bible? So this is just my search. And as a part of my search, I was searching up the language and so on. Now I'm dealing with the name. I want to find out about the name, because when you deal with a name, when you deal with the names of ancient gods, it's clear to me that a name was used to summon a god or invoke the presence of a god for whatever reason, right? Like, let's say you're praying for blessing for some reason, like your crops to grow, something like that, or safety and help in war, whatever. So it was a name, it was a way to connect with that God, to do service unto that God. So a name was important like that. But I have to tell you now, while I will certainly develop it more in future lessons, do not approach my lessons on the name as if I'm telling you this is the name of God and you should accept it and just take it and believe it. Because as I started out this introductory lesson talking about how other people approached the name of God, especially when someone comes out and they say, oh, this is a new name of God and whatever, and this is actually God's name, but we just didn't realize and whatever. And they give you a particular name like Joe or Bill. Let me tell you now, this is my belief from my observation in rereading the Bible. Again, for myself, to think for me, not to think from the rabbi who wrote a nice book and because I thought the rabbi was smart and well learned, or this or that moray or so was well learned, and they taught the lesson strongly that I just believe it. No, I'm reading the Bible to find answers for myself, to test it. And so I will try at times to break the Torah for want of a better way of expressing myself, because I'm not really trying to break it. I'm trying to verify as much as one can have some kind of some modicum of verification in 2017 when we're so far removed in thousands of years from what happened in the first page of the Bible. But I'm just trying to verify for myself as much as is possible. And you'll see that in some of my videos when I talk about Adam and Eve, like I've got this video online, it's still online as to this date, because sometimes I'm starting out to delete some older videos. As I grow some more, certain things I just get rid of, so I just want to delete the video as I want to keep changing. So if I question things like in that video that I did titled Rebuking Eden, it's not really trying to break the Torah, although I expressed it that way. It's trying to verify. But at the same time, I expressed it that way because I want people to think of how I'm approaching this. That if in trying to verify the word of the Creator or the word of God, as we're more used to hearing, if I can break the Torah, then there is a problem with what has been presented to us as Torah. Because Torah, you shouldn't be able to break it with your questioning. In fact, the Bible actually encourages you to do some questioning, right? So I'm just questioning things strongly, and that's all I'm doing. Now, to be sure, while I don't intend to tell you what the name of God is in this introductory lesson, and I hope it doesn't slip out and I don't catch myself. But I don't intend to tell you, but just to make sure you are not kept waiting too long into the series, because it's a lot of videos. It's not just like 5 or 6 videos, a lot of videos, because I'm going to culture your mind in a certain way in order to show you what I am seeing by rereading the Bible for myself. So if somebody wrote a book on the name of God or on this or that topic of the Bible and it's out there on the shelves, that's their version, their thought. You read different commentaries on the Bible, different people have different thoughts, and so they express that in their commentaries. This series on the name of the Creator is just my take on what the name of God is. This is just my take on it. So there's no sense in cursing me, but of course some are going to do it. I'm not worried about that. I just rather you come with some proper arguments and not just say you're an idiot, because that doesn't really mean much to me, you know. You know, that doesn't challenge me in any way to correct myself if I'm wrong. So, you know, just do better than that. But I'm more trying to culture your mind with a circle method, as I use in the New Testament is Fake series, where I come from different angles to show why I believe this New Testament is fake. So I've got to come from different angles now to bring out my points on why I think the name of the Creator is what I'm going to tell you it is. So I use like a circle method where I go round and round, like from different vantage points or different angles to examine the topic of the name. So while I'm going to leave the actual name for maybe the second or third video, I will at least let you know, as I've stated in a couple of videos before, that I don't think the name Yah or Yahweh is the name of the Creator or slash the God of Israel. This YHWH tetragrammaton kind of stuff that I was big on when I was a youngster in Jamaica and in Bible college and so on. I don't think Jehovah, Yah, Yahweh has anything to do with the name of the God of Israel. The different names that are out there, any kind of name that has some Yah variant to it, I don't think any such name is the name of the God of Israel. So I present the series to you as an observation as I reread the Bible for myself. And like I say, I'm up to now dealing with chapter 5 and 6. As chapters 1 to 4, I spent a few videos dealing with Adam, the Garden of Eden, and the languages and so on. So I have yet to make a video on chapter 5 and 6. So I'm going to go through the entire Torah like that and take a look at it chapter by chapter, although I might group chapters together in a video to show my view of, you know, what I read. But any such variant with Yah in it, I don't think that's the name of the Most High. I think that was a deception that was slipped in, because from the days of Christianity, I knew or I read of Yah and Yahweh being names of pagan gods. But eventually, I didn't try to resist it. I just naturally pulled away from the Yah names. It just seemed strange to me. And so I'm just going to go ahead and let you know, like I said, probably in the second video, what I think the name really is. But in this video, at least, I will be clear on one thing. You can relax somewhat in knowing that there's not just going to be some other crazy brother saying you heard from God, and he's going to come out and tell you that this is God's name, it's Joe or Bill. His name is Billy. I'm looking here now, which is what prompted me to start the series a little earlier now than a few months later than I wanted to take, because I'm reading this encyclopedia. Well, actually, let me get to this website. Well, okay, the encyclopedia came first, I guess. Compton's pictured encyclopedia. I guess Compton was by Britannica. It was made for home use, like for students and school use. And it deals with names here. And what caught my attention was this very long sign with a long name that said that the Welshmen on the island of Anglesey in Wales are proud of the 57-letter name of their tiny village. Who's got a tiny village, but very, very long name, 57 letters. Turns out later on further reading, seems like the name was shorter, but they added more letters to it to kind of attract people to this tiny village. Because, you know, I guess people see this strange name and just want to come there or something. And the article in this encyclopedia is titled Names and Where They Came From. So I started reading on it. Now I'll switch over quickly just for the long name and then get back to the encyclopedia. And by the way, as you can see here in this introductory lesson, I told you I'm not going to come and tell you his name is Billy. So This is my observation as I do this series. I'm giving you something that you can study out if you want, look into for a different perspective on the name of the Creator or the name of the God of Israel. So as you will learn certain things from me, and even if you don't agree, you're definitely going to learn some stuff from me, because I'm going to present stuff in ways that people don't normally present them when I deal with the name. I'm going to present some things that are shocking to you as well when it comes to the name. So you're going to learn some stuff. But you can tell, though, by my approach here, from what I've said so far, that this is not the normal presentation that you hear when you hear a person teaching on the name of the Most High. You can tell already I'm approaching it differently, right? Because by now they would have come out with like 3 or 4 scriptures already and getting into the Hebrew and telling you all kinds of stuff. And as far as I'm concerned, all those things are incorrect. My view upon rereading the Bible for myself is that all of these teachings on the name of the Creator that gives you these Hebrew names for Yahweh and so on, the most learned person that has been using the Torah for 50, 60 years, they're old and gray now, they're 95 years old, and they tell you Yahweh, stuff like that. To me, those are all incorrect, a misunderstanding of the scriptures. So you can tell I'm approaching it differently because I'm not jumping right into the scriptures right away. But here now, as I get into it to do this last part of this introduction, the names and where they came from. So they got this long 57-letter name for this village in Wales. So I'm like, this is kind of strange here. It starts out with LLANFAIRPWLLGWYNGYLLGOGE, and it goes on to the rest of the 57 letters. Now, there's a lot of consonants in that too, so it's like, like how do you pronounce these things? I'm wondering. But I looked it up online, and from businessinsider.com, they're talking about it, but they say it's a 58-letter name village. But I learned, I said, oh, so you see problems with names changing. So when you deal with the name of the Most High, is it possible that somehow we may have learned something wrong about the name? If we're told it's Yah or Yahweh, could it have been something else? Could it have been, I'm just making up a word now, could it have been Yim or Yima or something as opposed to Yah? You see what I'm saying? Could it have been something else? Because these people here say 57-letter name and now 58. This website is saying. So let me read what they're saying to you here from businessinsider.com. Here's a story behind the 58-letter town name, where this encyclopedia says 57, in Wales that everybody's talking about. This article is dated September 12, 2015. And they say, despite looking like what happens when somebody falls asleep on their keyboard, this long name, and I won't try to spell it out again, is actually the name of a town. And you can want to search for this 58-letter name or 57-letter name town in Wales. They said, yes, it's 58 letters long, though you can also call it Llanfair Pool or Llanfair PG for short. The tiny town on the island of Anglesey in Wales recently made headlines when Liam Dutton, a UK weatherman, pronounced it during a live report without skipping a beat. It is the longest town name in Europe and second only to an 85-letter long place in New Zealand. They say there's only about 3,100 people living there, and 70% of them speak the Welsh language, which they say is dying out, as only about 19% of the people speak the language. Just, I guess you have to speak it, they say, to say where they're from. The tongue-twisting name actually only has 51 letters in Welsh. So here again now, and I'll get back to reading that. If it only has 51 letters, then now they're saying it has 51 letters. So when you deal with the name of the Most High, you today, as an English-speaking person in this case, if I didn't read any more of the article, or somehow someone had printed this and it didn't print out fully, maybe ink running out and so on, I would just have read up to that 51 letter if the printer had cut off the printing and thought it originally had 51 letters in it, or 51 actual written characters. So now you can look at the name of the Creator now and say, well, maybe there are some letters missing from the name of the Most High. Maybe it's not just Yah or not just Yahweh, but it could have been longer or something like that. Like we're missing some names. So in that sense, Yah or Yahweh could be incorrect, or whatever name you choose, right? So that's why I'm saying, how do I go about verifying that this is the word of the Most High and this is his name? That's why I'm studying and reading. But going on further now, they say it actually only has 51 letters in Welsh, as CH and LL are considered single letters in that language. So you see, they might write two characters, but in some cases, it's just treated as one character or one letter. So it's like dealing with words and studying words, and when you deal with names and so on, anything that could have been changed. So now, if I look back at it now, they're telling here now the pronunciation of this long name. Now, here's for the name part now. From the Encyclopedia Contents, it says names and where they came from. Names. A story is back of every name. So a story is behind every name, they're saying. Whether it be a personal name, a place name, or the name of just a thing or an idea. Names or things, for example, may come from their use, such as raincoat. So they're saying there's a story behind every name. That means that if the Most High is going to tell Moses on Mount Sinai or Abraham or anybody what his name is, there's going to be a story behind it, something that explains. It's not just some name just pulled out of thin air that just doesn't have any meaning. There's going to be a meaning to it. And certainly when I look at like a name Jehovah, the Jewish nationalistic name of God, that doesn't really seem to have any substance for such a great being who is a creator of everything that we see, creating a world that we could not create, and he just has a name that just means a nationalistic name. Like more needs to be said about that, if that is really his name. But the name has a story, and the story or the name of the thing comes from their use, such as raincoat. Or the name of an object may come from a distinguishing characteristic, such as the name rifle. And you see, when they say characteristic, distinguishing characteristic, that right there, although I didn't see it when I opened up the encyclopedia at first, that right there, that term distinguishing characteristic, is at the root of everything I will teach you in this entire series about the name of the Most High when you deal with the word Shem for name and so on. That's the meat of it right there, which I'm going to speak more and more about. So they say distinguishing characteristics such as the name rifle, which means a gun with grooves cut into the barrel. The name comes from an old French word, rifler, I think they're trying to say here, meaning to file or scrape. Still another kind of object name is the name or origin, the name of origin, such as petroleum, from the Latin words petra for rock and oleum for oil, rock oil. So petroleum is dealing with rock oil. So they've got more here on the origin of given names and family names and so on that I may make use of as the series go on, but I'll stop reading right here now. By looking here now at the word use, when they said names of things, for example, may come from their use, such as raincoat. So you'll call a coat, a certain kind of coat, a raincoat, and not just coat, because you use that particular coat when it's raining. Now, if you look up in the dictionary for the word use, as a verb, it says take hold or deploy something as a means of accomplishing a purpose or achieving a result. describing an action or state of affairs that was done repeatedly or existed for a period in the past, as in this road used to be a dirt track. Now, if we look at the word use as a noun, and that comes in line with what we're dealing with here when we talk about a name, use, the action of using something or the state of being used for some purpose. And they give this sentence to explain. A member of staff is present when the pool is in use. So it's dealing with the action of using something. So when you look at what they're talking about now with the name coming from its use, then any name of the Most High in the scripture would have come from something that someone observed that the Most High did. So the name is going to describe how he was performing an action, what he was doing and so on, or something like that. So a name is going to be used to talk something about the creator. Now, the word mouth, which I'm going to as well get into in the series, is going to explain something pivotal about the name of the Most High. Yeah, if you look at the Hebrew word pay for mouth, that's also going to deal with the name of the Most High. So I'm just throwing out a couple of ideas here for you to get an idea of some of the things that will come into this. But it's going to be, the name has to do with creation and with revelation and with doing things, accomplishing things, getting things done, which is no surprise then that with the Mount Sinai situation, they put in the scriptures there the name of God at that point when Moses said, I got to tell them who sent me, and then he says, well, tell them I am, and so on, and then it goes on to say something about Yahweh. So you see, it comes in right there at that point because he is mouthing something unto the man Moses. And with that mouthing or that revealing, what he says to him, his name comes out in that conversation. Why? Because he's getting ready to do something and he speaks about it. He speaks about what he's going to do. He says, I'm going to deliver them and I'm going to send you to help in this and so on. And in that speaking or in that mouthing, so he mouthed something unto him. It's interesting that I don't see in the introductory verses dealing with Adam, with all the mouthing or speaking or the breathing into the man, the breath of life, the name showing up there. And that to me is a little bit troubling because you say that Moses wrote the Torah, which I question that. And it's interesting, I'm going to try to take a capture of it on the screen because I heard, I've got this video I was watching again this week. It's something I never noticed all along about this man defending the writing of the Torah and saying that Moses wrote it. They always say that. But then when this person had to defend the writing of the Torah, they ended up saying the person writing the Torah was not a skilled person or not a very knowledgeable person, something like that. They're saying it was just a layman type of person from a layman's view and whatever. So that's a little bit troubling to me. So you can see why I'm rereading the Torah. Because if Moses was supposed to have been a wise man and he heard from God and so on, and somehow he divinely got this information to write all these 5 books or 6 or 10 or however many books you say there in the Torah, then Moses shouldn't have been writing just from a layman or just some little Israelite in some tattered clothes just coming crossing the Red Sea with everybody else, and he just noticed this and he writes this, but he's not skilled at the whole thing or whatever, and he only gets to see certain things. The person writing the Torah has very, very intimate knowledge of the things that happened, which to me seems to suggest, unlike what I was taught for years, that God just gave Moses some divine revelation of all these things that happened from Adam to write them. It seems to me that Moses, as some say, was probably using some other records before him. That seems to me to be the way that it was, but I'm looking into that some more myself. So you can see I kind of vacillate, I kind of go in and out, because I tell you, I really am searching. If this Torah really is of the Most High, it should stand up to all my scrutiny, all my searching. It really should, and it should provide some answers of common sense and science and blah, 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 whatever I'm going to be looking into, coming at it from different angles, because I just want to know. I want some things to be settled in my mind as much as is possible. So if Moses is a wise person who heard from the Most High, and he got the word directly from the God of Israel on Mount Sinai, if he got divine revelation on Sinai and he was told the name directly by God, not through some third party teaching him, then why didn't he put that name in the introductory chapter of Genesis? Although we know, there wasn't written in chapters, they were broken up later, but why not? Because, nobody's going to deny that certain things were put in to the scriptures at different points, when, like, certain names of places and so on, or descriptions of certain things were described with a more later or future description or place name that is future to the name that the place would have had at the time when the person was living in the Torah. So let's say whatever a certain place had been called in Moses' time, or in the time when they're writing this or that book in Babylon and so on, they might just go back and put in the future name of the place, but it wasn't called that initially. So if that was done, Moses now knowing the name of the Creator, because the Creator told him his name himself on Mount Sinai. Just like sometimes you see Horeb and Sinai, names which came at different time periods. Why didn't Moses slip in the name in an introductory fashion when the Most High was approaching Adam for the first time, to introduce himself to Adam and tell him what his name is? Because that's how we introduce ourselves, and names are very critical to revelation and to what's the word I'm looking for, to not correspondence with God, but to relationship with God, although that's not the word I'm looking for as well. But like when people are called or chosen, they are given names sometimes by the Most High, or the names are changed eventually, to introduce the newness of their life in a certain way when dealing with how they're going to affect the history of Israel. So their change of name, or their given name at the first, is given by the Most High, or the person naming them under the inspiration of the Most High, something like that, in an introductory kind of way, to tell something about the life of that person, what they will do within the nation, and what they mean, what promise is associated with them, and to identify or help place them within the scriptures. Why, since the name was going to be a very, very big thing later on, that people can't agree on it till today, why didn't the wise man Moses, who heard from the Most High himself, put the name Yah or Yahweh or Haya or Ahaya or Jehovah or whatever you want, introductorily to Adam? And he heard the voice of Elohim. Why didn't he hear the voice of Yahweh? But you'll find that later on, before the name was given to Moses, somebody shifts from using Elohim and starts to put in the name of the Most High, when the name seemingly from Scripture, from Torah, had not yet been revealed. So when I read that, by reading the Bible for myself, I suspect that It may not be wrong, but I just suspect it because, like I told you, I'm searching, I'm reading. Elohim, Elohim, Elohim. Elohim created Elohim, whatever. You heard the voice of Elohim walking, and Elohim kicked them out of the garden and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, somebody just decides to just come and said, and Yahweh said, out of the blues. And nobody in the scriptures was introduced to Yahweh. But they just put that in. So I want to know where that name Yahweh came from. Because I don't remember what they call it now, but there seems to be some kind of method where you find a first use of a word in scripture. So I'm going to have to examine that myself and come back in another video and look at it to see if it's really so. But the name Yahweh should have been given in an introductory way the first time it's used in scripture to somehow show that it is being introduced by the Creator himself in a very clear way that this is my name. The way he clearly made it plain to Moses, according to what the scriptures say, that he's telling him, this is my name. Although it is a very troubling passage, because he first says, I am that I am. The next thing you know, he comes up with Yahweh. I think in the next verse after, Exodus 3, about 14 and somewhere like that. So I just have some questions, so I'm looking into it and I'm wondering, because the name seems funny to me, this Yahweh. It seems like it's linked to some pagan gods every time I looked at it from in the days of Christianity. It seems to me to usually be linked to that, and to this day it still seems linked to that. That's why I'm looking into it. Now it could be that Yah or Yahweh is his name, Yah being the short form of Yahweh, as they say. It could be that it is his name, but it was put into all these pagan circles, pagan religions and so on. And we find it linked to those kinds of rituals, pagan stuff, because the name got corrupted, or out of deception, evil people from other nations from way back then linked the name to all this evil stuff, so that the real children of the Most High will doubt the name when they hear that it is Yahweh. They will doubt it because they'll say, it is a pagan name. Yahweh is a pagan name. It could be. So I see what I'm doing here. I'm not just attempting to ignore certain things by being one-sided. Because I don't like the name, I'm not going to give certain other arguments. But of course, I'm not going to spend as much time on those other arguments because that's not my focus. But I'm just noting that it could be that it's the real name, but there was just a switch and a trick to it. However, as I go into the other lessons, you will see why I do not think that Yah or Yahweh was the real name of the Most High, that was tricked up, by the heathen and by the Israelites themselves, who corrupted his name, as he said, and so on. I'm going to eventually show you what the corruption was about, but I'll show you some other kinds of corruption that happened to the name Yah and Yahweh, but show you that corruption itself, like when they say, they corrupted his name by changing a letter or something like that, mispronouncing it or something like that. That's just stuff by the wayside meant to distract you from what the name really is. So thanks for listening. I'm giving this my best effort. You all know, as I've said it on a number of videos before, I'm only probably now about 3.5 to 4 years, 3.5 years. So I still consider myself as having baby knowledge with the Torah. So I'm not speaking this as an expert, but I'm sharing my observation as I go. I'm learning as I grow, and I'm teaching, not just to learn from your camp member and your brother and your sister here and there, but to do your own research and studies. Look at it for yourself. You should know the Most High for yourself. As the Most High says in Hosea 6:4, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I forgot this part here. I want to throw in as like some addendum or something to the end of the video here. When you deal with name now, when you look at name from H8034 in the Strongs, the word Shem, it says it means name, reputation, fame, glory, the name as a designation of God, memorial, monument, so on. The first time now, as I mentioned first use earlier, I noted the word Shem, which is name. Now you're going to find Shem in Shemaim, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about Shem itself on its own. It's in Genesis 2 and verse 11. And this helps me to, in later lessons, develop my lessons, my thoughts on the name of the Most High. When you deal with the name of the four rivers mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, it tells something very important that will help you to understand why I took this route when dealing with the name of the Creator. As I read to you before from the encyclopedia, that name comes from the use of something, how something is used, and so on. Genesis 2 verse 11 says, the name of the first, talking about the rivers, is Pison. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. When you look at Pison, it says it means increase. It's one of the four rivers used to describe the location of the Garden of Eden. So that word there, Pison or Pison or Pishon, it deals with increase. So the name of the first river is increase. So as we read before, the names usually come from how something is used or what it is doing, tells something about its function. And that's what you have to keep in mind throughout my entire series on the name. The name has to deal with the function. Like when it says the hand of the Lord did this or that. So it comes out of something that the Creator is doing. So when it says like he delivered them in battle, by the hand of the Lord we were saved, or something like that, then his hand doing the work of saving them has to tell something about his name. The name of the Lord is a strong tower, righteous running into it are saved. That tower and the saving or salvation has to have something to do with the name, because the name is going to tell something about the function or what the name is trying to express to you. So the name here, Pison, says the first river was called Pison because they're trying to tell you this is a river that deals with increase. And it comes from another word, push, which means to spring about, frisk, act proudly, be scattered and be spread. So frisk, leaning like, and acting proudly, is vibrant, is strong. You might make quick movements and it will well up and disperse and so on. So this is like a vibrant source of water, stream of water. Increase. So the name of the first is increase. Let's now go to Genesis 2 verse 13. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. So this Gihon means bursting forth. It is one of the four rivers of the Garden of Eden. And they say some more stuff right there. So bursting forth, it means it comes from another word, still dealing with giak, which still is dealing with to burst forth, to draw forth, to bring forth, to break forth. A primitive root, to gush forth as water, labor to bring forth. What we find so far is that these first two rivers that are mentioned, the Pison and the Gihon, they are called respectively river of increase and the river of bursting forth. So you're dealing with two words there for these rivers that are telling you that the two rivers are powerful and strong in their activities. Increase, it wells up and bursting and so on. So it's got some strong force behind it. That's what it's trying to tell you. Verse 14, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria, and the fourth river is Euphrates. So now let's look at the word for the river Hiddekel, listed as a third river. It says rapid. Notice now that all these rivers so far seem to be kind of telling you that somehow they might be connected to a single source of water or a great body of water,
or that they are coming from a stronger source that's giving life to them. You got increase, and then you got bursting forth, and now you got rapid. They all seem to be communicating the same thing, that these rivers are very strong and very powerful. So look now at the other river, fourth river, Euphrates. From the word Perath, is dealing with fruitfulness. The largest and longest river of Western Asia, and certainly this is the one used for the fourth river. From an unused root, meaning to break forth, dealing with rushing. Now, all those names are telling you that all four rivers are doing something similar, and they're acting in a similar kind of way. To do what? To produce what the final river is trying to deal with or trying to communicate to you. So you got first, second, and third river, and then the fourth one. Now you got the river of increase, then bursting forth and breaking forth, and then rapid for the third river. And the last one is telling you it deals with breaking forth as well and being powerful like that, but it is called fruitfulness, a river of fruitfulness. And we know in ancient times people would live by the riverside and so on because it sustained life. So all these, the names of all these four rivers are telling you that life was springing up and life was present because the Creator had started it, but He created life with a lot of force and rapidity and strength to it and vitality to it. And all of that liveliness of each river, each of the four rivers, culminates in what the fourth river is communicating, that all that life-giving activity of all the rivers results in fruitfulness or in giving fruit. So in other words, the rivers give life or sustain life, because the fourth river for the Euphrates also talks about breaking forth like the others did, but they chose to give an upfront meaning of fruitfulness to show you that the breaking forth, the rapid, proud, strong, vibrant movements, powerful movements of all these waters was to give life to fruit, in other words, to give life to man, to sustain life, fruitfulness. So something is going to grow because life will be sustained by what the rivers are able to do. So the Shem, or the name of each river, is telling you that while the river is running rapid and breaking forth of wherever it's at, it's going to break forth to give some life. That means it's going to break forth to give some promise and hope, because it's giving sustenance. It's going to give fruitfulness or life. So you are not going to die who needs to continue to exist. You are going to continue to live because fruitfulness is coming to you. Fruitfulness is on its way, and these rivers are bursting forth. Why are they able to break forth? Because according to their Shem, or to each name, life is in it by the word that actually created it, because everything we have to expect, it just came from what He said when He said, "Let there be." And so He spoke life into these rivers. Obviously, that's what He did. And He made them to give life. The words themselves, as the encyclopedia said, tell about what the name is, or the choice for the name. So I'm introducing to you here that maybe, and just take this as a maybe now, you say Moses was told by God what his name was. Could it be that since name comes from the use of stuff, that it was not the Creator who named Himself, but man named his God? Maybe that's not too far-fetched. As I say, I'm studying, I'm searching, I'm learning, and I'm growing, right? So you got to develop with me and keep your own beliefs in the name and so on. I'm not taking anybody away from anything.
I'm just learning to study the Torah, and I'm telling you how I feel and think about the scriptures as I go. Now, he did say to Adam, name all of these animals. And so Adam gave names unto them like it said. So since now names come from the use of things, how things function and so on, Adam would have named, so you see what the Creator did? He gave the responsibility of naming these animals that the man would relate to or use in his or encounter in his day-to-day life. He gave all that responsibility to Adam. And so Adam came up with the names of what the animals meant to him in his mind as he observed how they were functioning. So if someone observed a river like Pison welling up, they'll call that increase. It's vibrant, voluminous. So they said increase for Pison. And the next one, rapid and so on, based on maybe how swift and fast they were moving and so on. How rushing the water was and so on. So if Adam observed a particular animal acting in this or that way, then he might have named it this or that, because that's what it meant to him to see those movements or actions from this or that particular animal. So he named the animals according to his observation, because clearly the scripture is not telling us that the Most High made the animals and gave them all the names. In fact, it says he just made beasts, and then Adam called them different names. So the names in that case, as one of the most striking naming scriptures, come from the story or the account of how Adam provided names that were not there before.